The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, expensive dresses, and polished smiles. It was the 25th high school reunion, and everyone had come prepared to show how successful they had become. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Conversations echoed with stories about promotions, vacations, and impressive homes. Standing quietly near the entrance was Emily Carter. She wore a simple navy blue dress she had owned for years. Her shoes were carefully polished but noticeably old. She carried herself with quiet dignity, though her hands trembled slightly as she checked the invitation one more time. She almost turned around. Memories from high school still hurt. Emily had been the shy girl from a poor family. While others wore fashionable clothes, she often wore hand-me-downs. Her classmates had nicknamed her, Charity Case. The cruel jokes had never completely disappeared from her heart. Taking a deep breath, she walked inside. Almost immediately, a familiar voice called out, "Emily, is that really you?" It was Vanessa. She looked glamorous in a sparkling designer gown surrounded by old classmates. Vanessa looked Emily up and down before forcing a smile. "Well, you certainly haven't changed much." Several people laughed quietly. Another classmate whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I thought she'd at least marry someone wealthy." More laughter followed. Emily smiled politely. "I've had a good life." Vanessa smirked. "So what do you do now?" "I'm a librarian." The room suddenly became very quiet. Then someone chuckled. "A librarian? Seriously?" Another person added, "I guess someone has to organize books." Even the bartender tried to hide a smile. Emily simply nodded. "I love my work." But to many people in the room, loving your work mattered far less than making lots of money. The conversation quickly shifted away from her. She found a quiet table near the window. For a few minutes, she simply watched everyone laughing together. She wasn't jealous. She was simply reminded why she had never attended previous reunions. Across the ballroom sat an older gentleman in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Unlike everyone else, he spoke very little. He watched every conversation carefully. His silver hair was neatly combed. His calm expression revealed nothing. Few people recognized him. Those who did assumed he had accidentally wandered into the wrong event. His name was Daniel Bennett. Emily noticed him only because he smiled warmly when their eyes briefly met. She smiled back. Nothing more. An hour later, the reunion host stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, before dinner begins, we have a special guest joining us tonight." Everyone looked toward the entrance. Instead of someone new arriving, the host smiled toward the quiet older gentleman sitting alone. "Many of you may not know him, but this is Mr. Daniel Bennett." The room became silent. One man nearly dropped his drink. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Daniel Bennett wasn't just another guest. He was the billionaire real estate investor whose company had transformed the entire city over the past 20 years. Office towers, hospitals, public parks, museums, entire neighborhoods. His company had built much of the modern skyline. He quietly walked toward the stage. "I apologize," he began softly. "I wasn't invited as the main guest." Light laughter filled the room. "I came because someone very special to me graduated from this school." Everyone looked around. Who could it be? Daniel continued. 20 years ago, I spent several months recovering in the public library after losing my wife." The room fell silent again. "I wasn't looking for conversation. I wasn't looking for friendship. I simply needed somewhere peaceful." He paused. There was one young librarian who noticed an old lonely man sitting in the same chair every afternoon. Emily slowly looked up. Daniel smiled gently toward her. "She never asked who I was. She never cared how much money I had. She simply brought me books she thought would help heal a broken heart." Several people exchanged confused glances. Daniel continued. "Sometimes she left handwritten notes inside the books. Don't lose hope. Better days always come. Someone cares. I still have every one of those notes." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I honestly don't even remember writing them," she whispered. Daniel laughed softly. "Kindness rarely remembers itself. It simply becomes part of another person's life forever." The ballroom had become completely silent. Daniel looked around the room. "I've met presidents. I've negotiated billion-dollar contracts. I've attended royal dinners. But genuine kindness," he looked at Emily again, "is still the rarest thing I've ever found." Vanessa lowered her eyes. No one laughed anymore. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket. He removed a small folded piece of paper. Its edges had become worn over the years. "I've carried this every single day." He unfolded it carefully. It read, "You matter more than your worst day. Don't give up. Signed only." He smiled. "Your librarian, Emily covered her mouth. She had forgotten those words completely. Daniel looked toward the audience. Success built my company, but kindness saved my life. Then he turned toward Emily. My foundation is opening 100 community libraries across the country. I was hoping you might help lead the project. Gasps spread throughout the ballroom. Emily stood frozen. Me. Daniel nodded. I can't think of anyone more qualified. You understand something universities cannot teach. What's that? She asked quietly. How to make people feel seen. The audience rose into a standing ovation. Not because of Daniel's wealth, but because everyone suddenly realized they had laughed at the one person whose heart had quietly changed a life. Vanessa slowly approached Emily. I'm sorry. Emily smiled kindly. It's okay. No, Vanessa replied, tears forming. It really isn't. Emily gently hugged her. Because kindness does not seek revenge. It creates healing. Months later, the first community library opened. Children filled every reading corner. Older people gathered for free classes. Families discovered books together. Above the entrance was a simple bronze plaque, dedicated to every quiet act of kindness that changes a life without expecting recognition. Emily never became famous. She never sought attention. She still wore simple clothes. She still greeted everyone with the same warm smile. But every city that received a new library received something even greater. Hope. Years later, when people asked Daniel Bennett what the greatest investment of his life had been, they expected him to name a skyscraper or a billion-dollar project. Instead, he always smiled and answered, a librarian who believed a stranger deserved kindness. Because fortunes build buildings, but compassion builds people, and sometimes, the quietest person in the room leaves the greatest legacy of all. If you'd like, I can also expand this into a 3,000-5,000 word YouTube storytelling version with emotional dialogue, suspense, and cinematic pacing.